Hello, my name is Liz Scott, and I am here to bring you another QuickBooks Online hot tip. This time it's working with budgets. There's been a new rollout, which I thought was great because we're talking about year end and we're getting ready for new ideas and processes. Budgeting is something that absolutely should be a consideration. So there's a brand new budgeting feature, and it allows you to create balance sheet budgets. So that's kind of a new concept. So you can play around with it, and you can look to see, what kind of adjustments could you make in your business in order to maybe pay off credit cards faster, those kinds of things. So then we're also going to look at something that's new inside of the profit and loss for budgeting. So that way you can kind of have an idea of where might you go with these functionalities that are in QuickBooks when you're talking about budgeting. So I'm going to share my screen, and you are going to see here is a QuickBooks Online demo account. This is a Plus subscription. So you do need a Plus or a QuickBooks Online Advanced subscription to then choose budgeting. And from here, we're going to actually create a new budget. Here's our brand new choice. So we can say a budget we want to create utilizing the balance sheet, and then we could determine what year we want to create that budget and how do we want that to be displayed. I think that monthly is where you can have the biggest impact as you're watching each month the data adjust. One of the things that you're going to see here is there is a new bar. This is a summary of all of the activity that is happening. So you can see the assets, liabilities, and what's your equity. So we're going to look through here. Let's say that maybe we want to keep a bank account balance of $20,000 throughout the year. We do not want to ever dip below $20,000. Now, one of the things I could do is I could say, let's copy this all the way through. That's going to allow me to not have to type that dollar amount over and over again. Some of the other things that you could see is maybe I have got some liabilities that I want to focus on. So I've got an American Express, and maybe I want to make sure that I'm paying that balance, keeping it down, and I want to keep my balance at maybe a maximum of $5,000. So that would be something that I could do. All of these are going to be areas that you could work on. You could create scenarios where you've got your assets and your liabilities and your equity, and you can still see what's happening. So unbalanced by 15,000, that lets you know if we scroll down here to see what's going on, we can look to see some of the reasons why we might need to make a balance sheet adjustment in our budgets. So really helpful for those of you who have been asking for that functionality. The other thing I'm going to say is if you're somebody who wants to continue to use the profit and loss budgeting functionality, this is where I get the biggest impact. Go ahead and say you want to use last year's numbers. So your reference information would be actual numbers from the period that you're working in. And then from here, you can start to say, where do I want my income to come from? And I can start to plop in. Maybe I've got sales channel income, and I want that to be $15,000 per month. So one of the things I'm going to show here is this is going to be different than what we looked at a minute ago. We were copying over the data throughout. Instead, inside of this profit and loss budget sheet, you can see there is a split. So if I wanted to have $15,000 per month, that would be my total amount. You can see that wouldn't actually work if I'm putting in a total here. But if I come over here and I want to use that $15,000, then I can actually copy it. So depending on what you choose here is the way that you're going to be able to disperse that data. Another area that you might want to pay attention to is shipping income. You might want to put in some dollars there. You could put in some labor. So let's just say that maybe we expect for that $18,000 a month, we expect $5,000 in labor. So again, I could put in my $5,000 here, copy that across. Let's go ahead and say, what about subscription fees? What if we already know that our subscription for Shopify for the entire year is $10,000? Now, here's where I can take that dollar amount and I can split it in all of my months. So that would be that $10,000 breakdown. Same thing. If I had other areas that I wanted to be able to say, I know that I've got subscriptions, and my subscription total for every year is, again, we're going to say it's a $20,000 for our subscriptions. Okay, I can split that out. Meanwhile, down here at the bottom, you can continue to see what is your total budget, what's your net income. So using our last year's numbers, we can see where we fell, but then using this year's numbers, we can see what's the impact of the totals that we're putting in and what's that activity going to look like for us month over month. Really helpful. Let's go ahead and say save. And then the next piece of information that we could do is we could start to say, I'm going to use a budget from a prior year. And I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, here is where the impact of your budgets really hit home with a lot of the businesses. Because you can say, I had budgeted to have $11,000 in income, but I only actually received $6,800. So I under budget, and then I can even see the percentage of budget that I was under. So here again, we can see what was my actual, what was my totals. This is where I start to have client conversations. Let's just back this up and let's just pull in 2 periods that would be exactly the same. That way we can look at this data and we can say, just for 1 month, this would be the conversation that I would have with a client. And maybe I might want to look at an entire quarter. You're always going to have this total column here. So even if I'm just looking at 1 month, this is what I get. So I could start to say, what happened with payroll? You know, maybe we should have budgeted more for that. Let's go back in and let's make an adjustment. This wasn't reasonable to say that we weren't going to have any owner salary. Of course, the owner wants to get paid. And maybe one of the things that we thought we were going to have was professional fees that was going to be around this $300 mark. But maybe we had one big month that ballooned because maybe that was tax time. So these are the kinds of things that you want to pay attention to. Why were you under or over? And that, even if it's just a one-time fee in a month, you can still go in and you can plot that dollar amount inside of your budget. That way, here's the big one, you're starting to predict for cash flow. Now, these are just demo numbers, so these really don't make any sense. We're just using a demo file that I use month over month. But where I would start to really want to pay attention to is how much money am I making? So I had wanted to be in budget and I had a net income that I was expecting, but what can I do to really work towards that? Everybody who owns a business wants to be profitable. So here's some ways that you can talk to clients and you can really help them with this idea of budgeting. So that way they can look at the actuals and you can start to get better. Improvement is what it's all about. I love bringing you tips. I'll continue to bring them. Until next time, take care.